everyone wants us to go, oh, Cloud9. There's two ways we can do this. We should probably talk a little bit about how good Cloud9 is. And then the rest of it essentially is just breaking down the GM job of 100 Thieves. What else is there to do?
Yeah, I think like just the short of Cloud9 is I think they're the best team in NA. I'd be shocked if they didn't win, especially after seeing the TSM TL game. I think even though TL won, Tactical was just like rocket jumping into dumb fights. They were giving up kills left and right. They were over pursuing. They were playing super sloppy, kind of in small skirmishes for a lot of that time, which made me really question their comms. Whereas what I saw from C9 was basically exactly what I expected to see. It's a continuation of last year where even if they are able, even if they lose or like into a little bit in the early game, they have the macro sense to just keep themselves in it and create win conditions. And they look much better than any other team.
Dude, I told people this before. It's an angle that is so lost because, like you said earlier about getting the rookies, right? The area where I feel like I understand something that a lot of actual experts in League of Legends don't is they're too caught in the day-to-day, right? So who is good today and who is good on this champion today and who wins their lane today? And what they end up forgetting in these off-seasons is like, here's the thing, mate. There might be a player who did an awesome job as a rookie top laner in LEC, right? But that doesn't mean next split I'm going to take him if I have Soaz as my option. Because what Soaz brings is like evergreen. Some of those qualities and experiences and things he has, as long as his form isn't absolutely terrible, what he can add to my team might be better than winning lane. Like, it might be a way to win the game. So what I even said was the reason why I actually thought it was genius to sign Perks wasn't like idiot fans who, for some reason, bizarrely, I don't know why this happened in this offseason, fans like thought Perks were, when he was a mid laner, was like Caps, and they were like, right, he's going to smash lane every game. It's like, that was never Perks' game. It's that way he plays for the team. What I said was also the implied value of signing Perks beyond his individual play is if I'm ever in a playoff series, right, and I'm like, obvious example here is Fudge. Like, I've never played even a playoff series. Say I look down the line at LCS, I just see the guy who never loses game 4, the guy who like wins all the tournaments, and I go, fuck. Of course I'm confident. Look at him. Like, who gives a fuck? He's not worried that we're behind the game. He's not worried that we lost the draft. He's not worried that we're down 3 kills.
Because he's come back so many times, right?
Yeah, that spreads. That's like infectious when you have that guy.
Yeah, how many times have we seen G2 come up with a creative solution to a losing game and just pull it out? And so I'd be super confident in that situation. And to be clear, I'm not saying C9 played wonderful League of Legends this last week. Like, they didn't, and it is hard to get a read on them because 100 Thieves did not play well. But I'm just saying, like, I'm much more confident in their abilities, especially because of the reasons Thorin's saying as playoffs go on. This is a team that has been, ever since we saw them in lock-in, they have been improving the whole time, right? They have just been getting better and better and better and better and better and better.
I think they only got like one bad week, and that was it, right? Not which week was it? The week before last. I think that was like the only week where we saw Cloud9 be a bit like not too good, but it was also a week that it felt like they were experimenting a lot. But I think that it's very, as you said, it's very hard to say how well C9 played just because 100 Thieves just played like really bad. But at the same time, and this is kind of like a narrative that I don't really agree, because I remember this was like also done upon us when we won versus EG, where, oh, both teams are just really bad because EG played bad, And it seems like it's like, what could C9 do better in a couple of those games, right? There were a couple of games actually where I think it was probably the third one.
Oh, yeah.
The third one. Yeah, the third one where they just practically did everything right.
Yeah,
so it's like, is the fact that 100 Thieves played bad means that C9 is not as good? Probably not. I think it's like sometimes you just do everything right and you can't really play better than what you did, even if it wasn't like absolute perfection. And how well you played will always depend on the competition that you have ahead. And if you basically played at the level that you can look at and say, we took the right decisions in almost every situation, then you played a very good series. And I think C9 did play a very good series.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they put on the strongest performance of any of the four teams that we've seen in the playoffs. And with that said, we'll see what happens when they face a better opponent, right? But I do think the real core of this conversation is what should happen with 100 Thieves, because the problem that we have with this 100 Thieves team is that everybody expected them with this roster to be challenging top 3 or top 4, which is exactly where they ended up, right? But for me, it's not, this is like the ceiling of this team, right? They're not going to be better than this. Do they realistically have a chance of competing for an LCS title? No, they don't. They don't
doesn't matter who the mid laner is, by the way. Like, even though I agree Demonte should probably play, it won't make the win LCS, let's be real.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with Demonte or not, I think that they have been one of the 2 teams, I guess, probably 2 teams, that actually got worse throughout the split. I think everyone got better at different grades. I think 100 Thieves and arguably GGS got just straight up worse throughout the split. And they went from like a spectacular tournament at the preseason tournament to a very strong opening to then just going downhill, which is weird since they just highly improved their top laner regarding to the GGS squad. So obviously their expectations should be higher than what they did at GGS. And let's keep in mind that they were 1 game away of beating the team that was literally the champion. And it was the weirdest reverse sweep of all time with lost with soul and stuff. Like, yeah.
I mean, I think that we expected them to start strong due to established synergy, because you have to remember what the lock-in tournament was, right? A lot of players didn't get their visas until late. So this was a very weird off-season due to the pandemic.
Yeah.
Most teams would have gone to Korea and boot camped during the off-season and gotten synergy. That did not happen. Many players couldn't get their visas until very, very late. Perks like rolled in at the last second to be part of the lock-in tournament, as did other players.
And so, Perks was probably like one of the first, if not the first one, to get the visa, because he got it last year, right? He got it at literally the end of December, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but I mean, when he showed up was like a week before or a couple weeks before the tournament. So you had a lot of delays. And so based on our expectation of, well, here's a core of a roster with a player like Someday who can slot in so easily because he's such a competent individual weak side player that you don't have to play around him. He's not a player that's going to demand a lot of your attention if you don't want to give it to him or if you're still developing that synergy. So it's a really natural fit. Right. And so you can expect this roster to perhaps overperform a little bit. But I think realistically, again, the ceiling for this team was always top 3, top 4. Like, it was never 1 or 2. That I would never have looked at this team. And we talked about this before earlier in the season. It's like, you cannot reasonably expect for this team to be a title contender with this roster.
You can't. I don't think you can expect, but you can. I think that, let me put it this way. If this team overperforms, I think they can make it. And there are ways to make this team overperform. So even though it shouldn't be kind of like an expectation that it just should happen, it should definitely be in the range of possibilities. That's what I think for this team. It should be a possibility, not an expectation. And
problem is that
right now it looks like it's not even close to being a possibility.
Here's the problem, right? Whenever you talk about any NA roster, until they change the rules, you must always ask, did you put the imports in the right spot? That is first question before any other question. Now, I will tell you, from watching the LCS over the years, the absolute worst way that you can build your team, in my opinion, both through imports and who the best players are, is you never want the 2 best players to be the fucking top laner and the AD carry, because they have no way to synergize in any way. So, like, in that scenario, like, you can't have the whole be the mid lane. Like, am I the only one who's figured this out? Like, mid lane is the most important position in the game. Like, everyone's going to go, no, it isn't. It's like support, jungle. That doesn't matter if you don't have a good mid laner. If your mid laner is losing all the time and doesn't have any champions and can't play the matchups, then it's irrelevant. The jungle and support aren't going to be able to do anything in the game. So, to me, what I don't understand about 100 Thieves is, here's the mid laners they've had in their entire time as 100 Thieves. They've had Ryu, fucking Saligo. Now they had, then they had Rioma and Demonte. Guys, you can't have the fucking top jungle be the imports. It doesn't make sense. Like, this ain't even the league for it. Remember, NA isn't the league where you just play through top lane. This isn't Korea or something, you know? Like, this is like those teams back in the day where Korea would always have like a good lineup of players, and that'd be like, in the mid lane it is Fly. And I'm like, I'm out. And everyone's like, give him a chance. I'm like, he's just not going to be the best, is he? Come on, man. How's he going to fucking win? You know?
Well,
ironically, actually, somebody I played with. So, listen, this guy's just cursed, I guess.
Thorin, can I ask something? Like,
yes.
Do you think that Soligo would have the performance that he's having right now if he would be the 100 Thieves mid laner?
Oh, almost certainly not.
Yeah, then maybe the issue is not only the mid laner, right?
Doesn't help though.
Gyoto just like, he's being very, very not subtly subtle right now. So would you like to expand on what you think the problem is, Gyoto?
No, I think that okay, I'm not throwing shade at like anyone in particular. I'm just saying that like you can still go, because like we are doing that, Dignitas is doing that, to developing pieces and FlyQuest as well, where I think that both Soligo, Insanity, and Palafox would be better fits for the mid, or at least they are both. I think that the three of them are better players than both Ryoma and the Monte.
That's fair. Okay.
But my point is that I think that the environment that it seems to be there is a very let's say that it's very easy to target the mid laner. And the way that they set up the team building, and that's why I agree with Thorin, is that they made it very easy to have an scapegoat. The same way that FlyQuest had an scapegoat on NXI when they were playing the lock-in tournament and losing to academy teams and
of course,
like bad teams. Like, but 100 Thieves has that to a starting player. So then I feel like it gets like very, very hard to even for the Monte to perform at the level that he performed at GGS. He didn't perform bad. He didn't perform as like a top mid laner by any sort, but he wasn't a liability, right? At any point. And the way that he was painted this time is that he was being a liability. And I think that that's because the core issues were not being addressed. And the core issues were, after 15 minutes, 100 Thieves doesn't know how to play the game. That's their core issue. I don't think it's like the Monte or Ryoma. It's just that after 15 minutes, they don't know how to play the game. And having an scapegoat as mid lane instead of addressing that issues, it's easier, but it's less productive for your growth.
And also, people will I have to be very careful because obviously I'm good friends with Papa Smithy, and I know a lot about this topic in terms of the players, like the way this team was built. I think there's a fund. I'm trying to just say this in a way that is not going to get anybody in trouble. I think that there are issues that exist that were beyond the control of the organization to address this problem, right? I think that the way that GMing in North America works is that a lot of GMs don't have the opportunities to go after certain players because they are, kind of like being shipped to various teams by the teams that they're currently on. And there isn't a lot of individual ability if you are not one of the two teams involved to like make a deal or whatever. Right. So I'm just being very vague. And I think that if you are 100 Thieves, you're playing a long game. I think that they have been very active in creating developmental rosters, and they have been one of the more active teams, especially last year, in pulling those players into the LCS and giving them experience. I also think that, to Thorin's point, yes, the import or like the best players being AD and top lane. But if you look at is a problem and they have a hole in mid lane. But if you actually look at the imports that they have, which are top and jungle, right? Would you get rid of either of those players? If you're playing the long game, like you're basically waiting for someday to get a green card so you can import a mid laner. Like that is the piece that
and maybe closer becomes a resident because they make the minor regions count for next year. So, that's not impossible. Sure.
Right. And if you're coming into this season, you're looking at FBI and Huhi, and you're looking at the Golden Guardians core, and you have a chance to get all of these players, and all of a sudden FBI isn't an import anymore, which is absolutely huge because he is a good player. Huhi's been playing very well in the support position overall.
Yeah.
And any GM or coach will tell you that one of the biggest problems in NA is finding a support player. That is a huge issue. There's the support gap from the top players to like the next level is enormous. It's really, really big, right?
So I call JJ Smurfs every split, basically.
Yeah, and it's like, why did Gyoto import or like get Destiny? Funnily, doesn't count as an import anymore, right? Yeah. So that's great news for you. So there have been core issues with getting support players in particular. And I've heard this from many, many GMs, is that is one of the hardest positions to fill with a native player. But at the same time, you don't want to use an import on it because it doesn't have as much of an impact as mid lane, right? So you're kind of in this really kind of shitty quandary, which is why, if people are wondering, why did Vulcan's value go through the roof when he was sold to Cloud9? Like, why was he so valuable? That's the reason why. And his buyout was like insane at the time, right? So I think what's going on with 100 Thieves is that they are playing a long game in that they got a good core roster, and the problems in mid lane will eventually be addressed one of two ways: from their developmental system, which they have been dedicated to, or from the fact that sooner, probably rather than later, because Someday's been here forever, Someday's going to get a green card, and then they will solve it through importing.
I think he gets it next year already.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell because of the change in the presidential administration and immigration policy. Like, I think that he might have already gotten it had, the last presidential administration had a different approach to immigration. I'm not sure what the timeline on that was, but I think he will get it eventually. And so what are your choices now if you're 100 Thieves? Like, the rest of the team, suck it up, basically. And like, fans can criticize it, like, oh, you should use Damonte. Maybe they should. But their problem too is that they have two mid laners with polar opposite styles, basically. And so anytime you trade out your mid laner, the rest of the team has to play entirely different around them, which, to your point, Gyoto, is like, how do you play the late game in that scenario when you're making this change that fundamentally shifts the entire mid lane champion pool, which then fundamentally shifts the macro game late from picks or split pushing to like team fighting with control mages, and then you're expecting them to get this synergy, right? So I think it's really hard. I think it's really hard for them to deal because like people will say Damonte, and like maybe they should have gone with Damonte. Right? Maybe they should have played the Damonte style, but that style is objectively weaker in the metagame right now. So it's a hard call.
In terms of the champions that are available, sure.
Yeah, still doing it.
Like, you can try.
Still playing Nocturne mid. They don't care.
That's true.
My problem is this, Monty. If you go in with if you're trying to go like the Moneyball approach and trying to figure out like which positions can I like max out and I can min this now, but I can max it, like that makes sense, right? But the problem is that's more like a sports approach, and the reason why I don't think that's as simple as it sounds there, like, oh, it's all like the 4D chess. Like, then when he becomes like a resident, you get this guy. The problem with that is it assumes all the players are as good next year. Assumes they're good in 2 years. Like, here's the thing, right? If I've learned anything about League of Legends, split to split, people could just drop and rise, and it's crazy. Like, there is no such thing like in American football where it's like, right, I've got a good player, he's in year 4, he's going to be amazing in year 7 still. That doesn't exist in League of Legends. So as a result, like, one of the reasons I hate this particular last 2 years of 100 Thieves is because Someday has been like at boiling point the whole time. He doesn't need anything. All he needs is a team around him, and he could have been an LCS champion like 5 times over now or something ridiculous. But he's never ever won because people use him instead as the ultimate band-aid. They just put him onto teams that have problems, and he does everything he can, and then that's it. And another factor here is when you said there, Monty, like, would I remove Closer or Someday? In isolation, I wouldn't remove either. They're both really good imports. But together, I think you've got a problem there. Because one thing that Someday, listen, I know he speaks some English, but he's never going to be he's never going to be like the captain of the team. So he can't bring that with him. Closer's still a pretty inexperienced player. He's only had a couple of years, basically. It's like, in isolation, I like both these moves. If those are my 2 imports, I don't really like it overall. Like, I think you were always going to have gaps in the team. And so you're only basically, the only game plan that makes sense in terms of like, I did a good job was if you're playing for this, like, in 3 years though, then I have the best team. It's like, there's a lot of ifs there, mate. And that also, by the way, ignores What if, for example, in the future, Cloud9 can get an import top laner because they get another resident status on Sven, and now they have like the best European top laner and that fucking team. Well, guess what? This team wouldn't beat that anyway. So, in my opinion, like I get, like there are some angles you can argue, but it's like, listen, yeah, knowing behind the scenes certain things, like they're not, listen, I know because 100 Thieves people are going to think they have all the money in the world. They don't. Like they're certainly working to a budget, but I do think there were potentially other angles you could have gone on this. Like, I'm not really sure like this is the team that I would want to build, put out with.